Hello everyone. You're very welcome along on this latest open country audio walk with me, Tom. I'm delighted to say that spring has definitely sprung. The sun's out, the sky's blue. There are a few dappled clouds, so they're all adding to the atmosphere today. There is a chilly little breeze that is tickling the branches of the trees around me. And it's keeping me from shedding a layer. But there's definitely a strong spring-like feel to the day. And I have a feeling that my coat won't be on all day. I'm sure it will get to a point where I think, actually, it's a little bit too warm for this. So today we're in the heart of the North York Moors, in a little area known as Farndale. And if there's one thing that this area is famous for, it's its daffodils, which is what I've come in search of today. In fact, we'll be walking the Farndale Daffodil Trail, which snakes its way alongside the River Dove through open farmland and a few areas of woodland, from a quaint little village called Low Mill to another beautifully quaint little village called Church Houses. This really is a quintessential slice of North Yorkshire. And on a day like today, I have to admit, I don't think there's anywhere else that I'd rather be. So I'm really glad you could join me as we put our best foot forward to walk the Farndale Daffodil Trail. We're just leaving Low Mill Village, and there's this excellent little green sign that's pointing us in the right direction. It says, "To the Daffodils." And from where I'm standing at the moment, looking down the path that we'll be walking, I can already see a glimmer of yellow dotting the field to our left. We haven't even left the village, let alone met the River Dove yet, but it's a very promising sign. Folklore suggests that the daffodils on the Farndale Daffodil Trail were planted by some of the original monks that inhabited Revo Abbey, which is just over the hill from here in the adjacent valley. But in reality, I think that the daffodils here are actually native. They're a bit smaller than that you would see in your garden, a little bit more dainty. They definitely don't grow as high, and the flowers are slightly smaller. But these native daffodils are actually a protected species since 1955. So it is illegal to pick them. We've just got to admire them in their natural habitat here in Farndale, which is exactly what I'll be doing as we wander along today. The babbling of the River Dove is just coming into earshot as we make our way down into the valley. The sounds being emphasised by the breeze in the trees, which are all casting beautiful shadows across the grassy field that we're walking through. Although it's early spring, there isn't really much growth on the trees at the moment, maybe just one or two buds. So as the sun shines through the branches, they almost look like arms reaching out across the field. As we see the contrast between the light of the sun and the shade of the trees. Also, just coming into view on our right hand side, as I look up at the other side of the valley, you can see the edge of the moorland. Farndale is quite a shallow valley, so it quickly turns from the rural element of the farmland and the grassy fields dotted with the quintessential North York Moors cottages to the rugged beauty and brown nature of the moorland beyond. I really enjoy walking through places where you get different habitat styles. So it really adds a fresh variety to the surroundings. And I would go as far as saying that it's only really in this country that you get such extremes like this. Because I suppose our climate is just made for it. Anyway, the daffodils are drawing me on towards the River Dove, so let's continue to make our way to the river and follow the trail along. The River Dove is by no means a large river. In fact, I'd probably go as far as saying it's more like a large stream than a river. It's snaking its way down off the moors from above Farndale, down towards another quaint North York Moors village called Hutton le Hole, which is just a bit further downstream than where we are at the moment, just outside Low Mill. Despite all the rain that we've had recently, it's quite shallow. You could probably walk in places from one side to the other as long as you've got decent waterproof shoes on. Maybe Wellington boots would be a good choice, but to be honest, I don't really fancy it, just in case I get washed away. So we're going to follow the path down the north side of the River Dove and see if we can find a few more daffodils as we go. I've just deviated from the path ever so slightly to come right down onto the banks of the River Dove, because just at my feet now are a few patches of daffodils all facing the river. Now, daffodils tend to point into the direction of the sun as it helps them to take in their nutrients and photosynthesize. But it almost looks as if they are looking at the river and admiring it just like we're doing now. As it babbles over the rocks, the water's glinting in the sunshine, which is producing this beautiful backdrop to the daffodils. The translucent yellow nature of the petals is glowing. It really is beautiful to see. I just about managed to tear myself away from that riverside idyll with the sun glinting and illuminating the daffodils. But every corner that you turn on this trail, there's something unique to take in and admire. You may still be able to hear the River Dove babbling away in the background, although it's now a little bit further off to our left, because the path is now currently winding its way through this pocket of woodland. The majority of the path so far has been through farmland, following the river with open fields to our right. As we enter this peaceful area of wood, we're met with not just more daffodils, but more springtime growth. The ground underneath the trees is carpeted with pungent wild garlic. Currently, it's just in its early spring-like state of flat green leaves shooting out of the ground. And that aroma, which is very distinctive, is filling the air. A little bit later on in the spring, they'll start showing beautiful pom-pom white flowers that stretch above the greenery and provide almost a snow-like effect if you're walking through a wood where there's an abundance of it. Looking a bit further up the banking at the side of the valley, there's also the green shoots of bluebells. Again, like the wild garlic, not quite in flower yet, but in a few months' time, as the daffodils start to die off, we'll turn from a sea of yellow and white to a sea of blue. Goes to show that although this is called the Farndale Daffodil Trail, I'm sure no matter what time of year you came to walk this beautiful part of North Yorkshire, there'd be something that would take your breath away and make you think, wow, isn't nature amazing? It seems as quickly as we entered that little area of woodland, we're soon leaving it again and returning to the open farmland. It's another reminder of how diverse and varied the habitats are around here. I have to say the paths here at Farndale Daffodil Trail are really well maintained. I suppose on nice sunny weekend days at the height of the daffodil season, these paths will take a pounding from many a tourist, which is why they've had to compact them with stone and large flags. Although there have been some muddy patches here and there, the majority of the route has been very pleasant walking indeed, and very easy walking as well. Whether you would like something accessible for a wheelchair or accessible for prams and buggies as well. Just goes to show that everyone's welcome here, which is lovely to see. As we make our way across this field, you can still hear the sounds of the birds echoing across the valley from the trees alongside the river. As I once again look up to my right towards the moorland, it's framed by two grand oak trees, which, as I said earlier, haven't got any leaves on at the moment. It doesn't make them any less impressive or less domineering on the side of the valley, looking down at us as we walk along this path. And every so often, as I glance from left to right in the more immediate vicinity, I can once again see patches of daffodils. It almost feels like I've exited the real world and come into some spring-like paradise. And at the moment, the trail's pretty quiet. It's almost like we've got it to ourselves, which is a real privilege indeed. The familiar babbling rush of the River Dove has once again re-entered our earshot. And also, that distinctive smell of wild garlic is once again filling the air. Although we're not quite in the woodland, can just about see it alongside the River Dove, the smell has been picked up by that cooling breeze and is drifting it towards my nostrils, just adding to the multi-sensory wonder of this spectacular place. We're just about to walk through a set of old stone gateposts. Today there's not a gate in between them, as it's left open for the many walkers that come here to enjoy the daffodils and everything else that we've discovered this place has to offer. And just a little bit further up, I can see the outline of some buildings. So I believe that we're going to pass through an old mill in a moment, which has since been converted into luxury living, and also the Daffy Cafe, where people who visit the trail can call in and get some sustenance for the rest of the route. You'll be pleased to know that I managed to resist the temptation to go into the Daffy Cafe, and we've continued along a farm track through the mill buildings, and we've now entered the peaceful little sleepy village of church houses at the top of Farndale. There's not a huge amount here, to be honest. There's a pub called the Feversham Arms, a block of holiday lets, a rather modern looking village hall, and some old farm buildings. The village is dissected by a little single-track tarmac road which winds its way out towards the church and then further up towards Blakey Ridge, which sits above us now at the head of the valley. Again, these temptations keep showing themselves, don't we? I've managed to resist the Daffy Cafe, so let's see if I can resist the pub as we make our way on up towards the furthest point on the Daffodil Trail, which is the church here at Church Houses. We've walked along the single track road for a short distance, and we're now entering into the churchyard of St Mary's Church here at Church Houses. I never thought I could say church so many times in one sentence. It's quite a stoutly built church, made of light-coloured stone. there isn't so much of a tower, just a little belfry at the top of one of the corners of the roof. It's not necessarily the church that draws the eye, although that complements the idyllic scene that we've got in front of us here. No, it's the daffodils that are just absolutely everywhere. It's like the church is rising up out of a sea of yellow. There's a few yew trees dotted about, which you do tend to find in churchyards, which just punctuate this beautiful sight of daffodils surrounding everything that we can see in front of us, and framing the view up towards Blakey Ridge and the moors above. It really is the pièce de résistance of the walk that has led us all the way from Low Mill to this point here. Arguably the most spectacular display of daffodils that we've seen all day. It really does raise the heart and gladden the senses. And with the sounds of the birds in the surrounding trees, and the peace from being the only person here, I think I'm just going to stand and revel in this beauty for a little while longer. Making my way back towards Low Mill, alongside the banks of the River Dove once again. Many people malign out and back walks, but I think it just goes to show what you can see from different perspectives. The sun is now shining from a different direction from when we passed through before. And as I walk past this bank of daffodils to my left, it's shining through them and highlighting the many details of the flowers. You can see the veins in the petals and all the different wavy effects that they create. It's only if you really take the time and stop and look and appreciate things from various different perspectives that you notice things like that. So I'm really glad I'm retracing my steps to just experience what I've already experienced, but in a slightly different, altered way. We'll soon be back at Low Mill, and all of this will seem like a perfect dream. It really has been a privilege to walk the Farndale Daffodil Trail today. And I really hope that you've enjoyed joining me on my journey. If you have, then you can check out more of my audio walks on the Open Country website at opencountry.org.uk. And you can also find them as podcasts on YouTube. But until the next audio walk, I'd like to say thank you ever so much for joining me and for listening. I look forward to speaking to you again very soon.